Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition and the need for asymmetrical gameplay across two axes, across the axes of class and across the axes of heritage. All right, let's get into this. All right, so I, J. Scott Garibay, I'm a tabletop role-playing game designer myself. I have one game currently on the shelf waiting for publication with a small press. Not going to talk about it because it's still very much in the works. But, so I can't give you all the details, but it's coming. Well, that's a slow road. Telling you people it's a little painful, but we'll get there. All right. And I have another game in design, right? But I'm convinced that Kate Welch will be the design lead on 6th edition. So this is me, Scott Garibay, putting this request here for Kate Welch, who I believe will be the design lead for 6E. I also believe that the design work for 6E has already begun. All right, and I think Kate Welch is all in the mix of that, if not the lead already. All right, so this is my request to Kate Welch. So I am requesting asymmetrical gameplay across the axes of class and across the axis of heritage, and I'll define what that is. But first, I want to talk about the source of this idea, where it came from, and why I'm talking about it today. The reason I'm talking about it is the Root board game. The Root board game is a beautiful, beautiful little board game. And it's going to get crazy. I've never played Root board game, right? But I'm incredibly excited about it. And the reason why I'm really, really excited about it is Magpie Games is taking Root board game and converting it into a tabletop role-playing game. And they released an absolutely stunning, beautiful, wonderful, free quick start, okay? That quick start is about 60 pages long. I read it cover to cover, and I'm blown away by it. I'm spinning up my campaign for Root RPG using the quick start right now. I'm very, very excited about it. But because I was so excited about this Root role-playing game, I actually downloaded the board game rules for Root and read through all of those as well. I also took in Adam Cobell's fantastic Root RPG playthrough, and then I watched some absolutely amazing, top-notch, high-production how-to plays and faction descriptions on YouTube about Root board game, right? So this is an entire different subject, but I'll dip into it here. We are living in a world now where source is becoming less and less relevant, and the meta is becoming more and more relevant. It's incredible. Like I've gotten so much enjoyment from a board game I never played and I don't own. It's incredible. It's just and that has to do with the internet. That has to do with communities with fan communities. That has to do with our modern life. It's a huge meta subject, and I'm really fascinated by it. Okay, let's keep moving forward here. All right. So Root board game has asymmetrical play. It has 4 different factions. It has the Maquis de Cat, it has the Vagabonds, it has the Woodland Alliance, and it has the Eerie Dynasty. Okay, and basically all these, and it's a whole bunch of woodland creatures battling over the forest, right? And it's a really beautiful game. It's wonderful, but it has asymmetrical play. So it's a 4-player game, and each player gets the Vagabonds, or the Eerie Dynasty, or the Maquis de Cat, or the Woodland Alliance, right? And the way that they play to win the game is completely different. Like, for instance, when you get your tokens, right? Like when you get your tokens in Ticket to Ride, everybody gets the same amount of rail cars. Everybody gets 12 rail cars, whatever the number is, right? In Root, that's not the case. The Vagabond has 1 meeple, right? The Maquis de Cat has like 20 cats. The Woodland Alliance has like 12 mice, right? And the Eerie has like 14 birds, the Eerie Dynasty. And so it's really unique, right? And also they each have a playboard, and it has distinct different rules, different win conditions for each faction. This is what I want for Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. I think this is an awesome idea to introduce. So how do we introduce asymmetrical rule play for each across the axes of class and across the axes of heritage? All right, so let's talk about class. We'll do the core 4, okay? So basically the idea would be that when you choose to play, so fighter, rogue, wizard, cleric, right? So when the idea is when you choose to have this, right? When you choose to have your wizard, cleric, fighter, right? What then happened when you choose to have your fighter, your wizard, your rogue, your cleric, you get to do things in the game. The rules fundamentally work different for your character. You can do things that no one else in the game can do, right? And like for instance, if a fighter wants to attack, we'll do fighter first. If a fighter wants to attack an opponent, they roll to see if they hit, okay? If a rogue wants to attack, if a fighter wants to attack somebody with a dagger, they roll the dice to see if they hit. If a rogue wants to attack somebody with a dagger, they roll to see if they hit. If a cleric wants to attack somebody with a dagger, they roll to see if they hit. If a wizard wants to attack somebody with a dagger, they roll to see if they hit. This is where I'm getting at. Fundamental asymmetrical rule play change, right? Where the classes do not work the same. So here's the fighters. Fighters do not roll to hit. Fighters do not roll to hit. Okay? Fighters, they get into a fight, they're going to hit that opponent, right? If they draw their arrow, whoop, they're going to stick that arrow right in the person, okay? Then if they have a dagger and they're in melee, they're going to stick that dagger in you, period, right? And the reality is, so you remove that from the fighter, right? They no longer roll to hit. You put them in a fight, you give them a dagger, you put an opponent in front of them, they're going to stick that dagger in that opponent, right? Now, what's that mean, right? Well, like that, the ramifications of that are huge, right? Well, one, it means that the fighter's going to wound or slay, right? So you move the fighter from not, oh, whiff, I did nothing, right? To wound or slay, right? The only question is if the fighter is going to wound or slay you, right? That's a big question. That is a fundamental difference for the fighter. The fighter becomes much more important, right? And of course, you would have to rewrite how damage works, right? And again, the other issue is every other character, you leave the damage rules as they are, right? But fighters, they just wound or slay. You're going to get wounded or you're going to die, right? They don't just tick you off, by, oh, I got eight hit points. That's a fundamental asymmetrical rule play change, right? Let's move on. Cleric, okay? The cleric's in the game, right? And we don't talk about this a lot. I think we should talk a lot more about this in Dungeons & Dragons. So Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, right? The cleric becomes incredibly important. If there is a cleric in your party, here's what they bring. One, a cleric has one resurrection, right? The cleric actually plays their god, worships their deity, plays their domain, is faithful, right? And for that, when one of the player characters falls, the player character who has the cleric will decide, I am choosing to resurrect this one player character. And once I've done it, I can't resurrect anybody else in this campaign, right? The cleric has one resurrection. The resurrection is immediate. There's no roll, right? Literally, the cleric walks over and they'll do a speech, right? They'll be like, Pelor, if you have found me faithful, please rise up this player character, and that's it, right? So resurrection changes. It's no longer just a divine spell, and you can cast it like you can order another taco at Taco Bell. It becomes critically important. There will be friendships broken over this, right? You're like, oh, I'm sorry, Sally, I'm not going to resurrect your character because your character's really lame. It's the same thing you read last session, right? Right? So, and I love this that that the cleric needs the player of the cleric is like, I'm going to resurrect one of you suckers, one, and that's it, right? It makes it special. It changes it, and it's not like, oh, we got to track back to the city and get the person resurrected. It's different. It's fundamentally different. All right, let's keep moving here. All right, so what else? The wizard. Oh, I love this one. The wizard does not advance. The wizard is a 10th level wizard. They start at 10th level and they stay at 10th level, right? And the reality is spells are acquired, right? There is no progression for the wizard. They are not bound by experience, and they don't and they start at 10th level, they end at 10th level, and they just have a bunch of spells, and they can cast whatever spells get in front of them. But spells are disposable. You get a spell, you cast it, and then it's gone, and you have to get it again, right? And so one of the things is, so basic. And the other thing, now, why would we do this? Like, you bring in, because one, it fits Tolkien's model of what was his name? Oh yeah, of Gandalf, right? Gandalf was not the same level as everybody else. He was super dope, like baller wizard who was way higher level than anybody on the team, right? And I love this idea of starting characters, starting the wizard, the cleric, and the fighter at level 1. The wizard is level 10, right? Because they're an arcane baller weird magician, right? And they stay that way. They do not advance. The only way the wizard gets more powerful is they get more spells, but they also lose spells, right? And so you remove wizards from the experience track, right? They start much higher level than everyone else, but they never advance. They remain at that 10th level, right? And again, you're gonna have to rewrite how many like sweep away a third or half of the stupid spells, keep the cool spells, and make the cool spells more robust and cool, right? So it's a fundamental change, right? So the rogue, oh, I love this one. The rogue does not deal with equipment the way anyone else does, okay? Here's how the rogue deals with equipment. So one, the rogue has access to all mundane equipment at all times. So when you go out on a journey, it's assumed that the rogue has packed their saddlebags of their horse with the gear they bought, the gear they stole, the gear they found, right? Like, found, air quotes, right? And that basically every time they go to a tavern or they go to an inn, the rogue, the thief, right? They just find stuff on them all the time, right? Because they're pickpocketing left and right. They don't even know who they pickpocketed, right? Pickpocketing is not a role. It's not a skill. It is a flow of equipment to the rogue that is automatic. Love it, right? It's cool, right? See, fundamental, asymmetrical, very, very cool. All right, last one, heritage. Heritage, dwarf, human, elf, rogue. Human gets nothing. All the Tolkien heritages get a dice set, and those dice set are limited. You get to roll the D4, limited to one session. You get to roll a D4 for one thing. And your heritage dice is a new set of dice that you bring to the table because you're playing a dwarf, an elf, or a halfling, right? Half-orc will get them too. It's unique. The color of the dice is specific to the heritage, right? And it's unique at the game table, right? And you spend them. So you roll the D4, you get one thing. You roll the D6, you get one thing. You roll the D8, you get one thing. You roll the D20, then you go back to the D10, then you go back to the D12, right? When you've rolled them all, you've gotten your 6 things for the session, and that's it. You don't get any more benefits from your heritage dice, right? The non-Tolkien heritages that are not human, right? They get tokens, and the tokens have an economy. They get spent to the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master can use them for other things, right? And then when the Dungeon Master uses them, they flow back to the player, right? Asymmetrical rules. So humans are getting nothing. The Tolkien races, the Tolkien heritages, are getting a unique new die set that is expendable within one session, and then resets at the beginning of the new session, and then there are tokens, and the tokens flow back and forth between the player and the DM. Asymmetrical rule play. I think this is an awesome idea for 6th edition. I love it. But all of that is my opinion and my humble request to Kate Welch to please add into Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. Do you think I'm right? Do you think Kate's going to do it? Do you think it would be a terrible idea if Kate did do it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.